Thank you so much, Mike. This is definitely one of the biggest bonuses of having won the leadership of the Green Party. I'm very excited to be working with Mike Schreiner. I come from Ontario. I was born just down the street and grew up here. And so having the chance to grow our base in Ontario, having the chance to support Mike in his work is very, very exciting to me. And I'm very, very much looking forward to that. Just in terms of some reflections about yesterday, one of the things that Mike said, and I absolutely support, is that Greens are always going to put the people that they represent first. Mike is our leader here in Ontario. He's a member of our legislature. But his first priority, even as leader, is going to be the people that elected him in the first place. And my question is, did we see that reflected yesterday with the Liberals and the Conservatives when they brought us to the brink of an election? The people who voted to take us into an election, potentially, were they thinking about the people in their riding who don't have jobs right now, the people who are struggling to make ends meet, the people who are waiting for the emergency services that simply have not appeared yet? And I think the answer is no. And so those people need real representation. Every time you elect a Green, you're going to get real representation. I've heard rumors about the possibility of the Conservatives and the Liberals once again taking us back to the brink by attaching a confidence vote to the next Conservative motion. And I'm asking them to please think of hopefully my constituents in Toronto Centre that are struggling with the pandemic. It's one of the hot zones in Ontario. We're in the second wave. We've been told it's not safe for us to go to an election, and they have urgent needs. So let's make sure that we put them first each and every time. And I'm asking people in Toronto Centre to do something that I know is different, but something that is going to get them the real representation they deserve, and that is voting for a Green MP. I'm asking for the Liberals to please make sure that they never weaponize confidence votes again, particularly at this moment. And I'm asking the Conservatives to do what people expect of all of us, which is to put their needs first, to work across party lines, and to get them the help that they need. Et en français aussi? OK. Alors d'abord, je voulais dire un grand merci à Mike pour le chaleureux accueil aujourd'hui. Je suis vraiment ravie d'avoir l'opportunité de le soutenir dans ses efforts de faire élire plus de Verts ici en Ontario. Moi, je suis née en Ontario, ici à Toronto Centre. Bon, c'est pas exactement, c'est la frontière de Toronto Centre. Et je sais que les gens ici en Ontario vont être beaucoup mieux représentés si nous avons beaucoup plus de Verts dans notre législature. Et aussi ce matin, surtout, je pense à ça parce que je pense à le motion de hier et qu'on était juste au but d'une élection pendant une pandémie. Et je me demande si ces députés dans notre Parlement ont vraiment pensé le membre de leur communauté, le résident de leur circonscription, quand ils ont décidé de voter dans une manière qui nous a amené jusqu'au but d'une élection. Et je sais que les Verts, nous n'aurons jamais fait ça. Nous voulons travailler dans une manière au travers les partis, d'une manière très coopérative, très collaborative. Et je demande au Parti libéral et Parti conservateur de se souvenir que c'est le moment de penser et travailler uniquement dans l'intérêt de nos constituants, de nos résidents, de les peuples ici au Canada. Je voulais aussi noter mon frustration que tous les chefs des autres partis ont dit hier et la journée avant ça que ce n'était pas les conditions d'avoir une élection, que ce n'était pas le moment d'avoir des élections, surtout dans une deuxième vague de pandémie, mais ils ont décidé de continuer. Et ici à Toronto Centre, où nous avons deux zones qui sont très touchées par les infections et ont des taux très élevés d'infection, ils ont décidé de continuer avec une élection. Alors ça, c'est un double standard. Je suis très déçue de la part des autres partis qui n'ont pas joigné avec moi pour demander une suspension de ces élections. Et je demande aux membres de résidents du Toronto Centre de considérer une autre option cette fois. Vous avez besoin, vous méritez une vraie représentation et je suis ici pour l'offrir à vous. I'm just going to say that last thing in English. A final reflection. I have been so disappointed, I'm sure Mike as well, that while yesterday and the day before we heard leader after leader after leader from the other parties coming forward to say that it was not safe to hold elections, that it was irresponsible to even consider it in the middle of a pandemic, that Elections Canada and their new rules had not been put in place, that even after that acknowledgement, they are still insisting that we go ahead with elections in Toronto Centre and York Centre. Toronto Centre in particular is a community with many low-income, racialized people doing all the work that is keeping the city running. And because of it, they have come back to their communities and the infection rates are very high in Toronto Centre. There are 2 hotspot neighborhoods in Toronto Centre. And so the question is, why the double standard? You know, I think everyone is tired of hearing politicians talking out of both sides of their mouths. If it's not safe to have elections in other communities, then it certainly wasn't safe here, and they should have put politics aside and joined me in asking for the suspension of those elections. But since they're going ahead, people in Toronto Centre need to know that if they're looking for real representation and people that never would have put them in this dangerous position in the first place, that's the Green Party, and I hope that they'll make that decision on October 26th. Merci. Question?
The pattern's been set. Nobody called Trudeau's bluff. What's going to prevent him from just operating as normal, just bluffing his way through this?
I am asking on behalf of the people in Canada and on behalf of the members of our caucus for the Prime Minister not to ever again weaponize a confidence vote in order to get what he wants. It was completely irresponsible for him to take a motion that has never triggered a confidence vote before, and to use a confidence vote in a way that we were staring down the barrel of an election yesterday. And so if he chooses to weaponize confidence votes in this way throughout this minority parliament, then we simply do not have the conditions that we can work under. I'm hoping that this was a one-off. Certainly, we expect from him and every single other party a very high level of cooperation during this period. It is what people demand. You know, I was speaking with my sister yesterday, and she, like most of her friends, didn't even know how close we had come to a snap election. And she and the people that do the kind of self-employment, that are out of work, they were terrified to find out that we could have been so callous in Parliament with their future and helping them to secure the benefits they need. So, you know, let's make sure that this was the first time and the last time that we, revert back to this kind of hyper-partisan behavior that took us to the brink. I don't want to see that again, and certainly the Greens are going to do everything we can to make sure that doesn't happen again.
What is this threshold? Sorry.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. Alors, oui, je voulais, de ma part, de la part de notre caucus et surtout de la part des peuples au Canada, je veux dire que le Parti vert n'acceptera pas que les votes de confiance soient lancés chaque fois que le gouvernement n'est pas content avec une motion de la part de l'opposition, soit les conservateurs, soit n'importe qui. C'était vraiment irresponsable d'attacher un vote de confiance à une motion qui, en général, a jamais été une motion ou un processus de confiance. C'est le moment de travailler ensemble, c'est le moment de travailler d'une manière collaborative, et c'est ça que les gens au Canada insistent sur. Et c'est ça que le Parti vert va insister sur aussi. Moi j'ai parlé avec ma sœur hier, En fait, elle ne savait pas, ni elle, ni ses copines et copains, qu'on était juste sur le but d'une élection hier. Elle n'a pas beaucoup d'emplois en ce moment. Il y a beaucoup de gens qui sont dans les emplois, qui ont perdu leurs emplois, où leurs entreprises ne fonctionnent pas. Il ne veut pas qu'on oublie qu'il doit être notre focus. Il veut qu'on sache que nous avons des besoins urgents qui ne sont pas encore adressés, et il insiste que leurs membres de parlement, leurs représentants, sont toujours ciblés sur eux et leurs besoins.
The way the mathematics worked out, you could have helped balance the power. If you have a threshold, if you have items that you'd like to see to use that in order to keep the government sitting.
Well, first, the mathematics were never going to, once the NDP had said that they were going to be voting against the motion. Yeah. But I mean, the second part of your question is very important. So we don't play politics with people. We are not going to barter our way through a pandemic. This is a moment for us to have one simple question that we are asking every day in Parliament, which is what is going to help people in Canada in this moment, and that's it. Okay, we're seeing again this steady decline back into partisanship. You know, people are asking themselves, how can we position ourselves best for the next election? What is the best moment to pull the trigger? None of those concerns are going to help people in Canada with their essential needs. And so our threshold is exactly that. Every time, and let's hope this was the last time, but if we are confronted with this moment again, we're going to have one question that we ask, and it's the same one we asked yesterday, which is what is going to help the most people in Canada, what is going to help them get the protection and help that they need during a pandemic. And if every party asks themselves that question, we can have the stability that we need for as long as we need it to protect people in this country. OK. Alors, pour nous, il y a une seule question qu'on a posée hier et nous allons poser dans le futur. Et ça, c'est qu'est-ce qui est mieux pour les gens au Canada? Qu'est-ce qui va répondre à leurs besoins urgents en ce moment? Ce n'est pas le moment de jouer les politiques, ce n'est pas le moment de considérer comment se positionner pour la prochaine élection. C'est le moment pour tous les partis à coopérer et collaborer pour assurer que ces besoins sont pardon, j'ai oublié le mot, que ces besoins sont. OK, I have to start over. Désolé. Ce n'est pas le moment pour les partis de jouer les jeux politiques, de commencer de se positionner pour la prochaine élection. C'est le moment pour toujours et uniquement demander qu'est-ce qui va adresser les besoins urgents des personnes au Canada. C'est la seule question qui est à la hauteur du moment. C'est la seule question qui mérite une réponse, et la réponse doit toujours être que les parlementaires, les députés, ils vont faire le mieux pour adresser les besoins urgents des peuples au Canada.
But you can't be, not to switch right, but you can't be the kingmaker or whatever. What would you love to see, or what would you like to see pushed in advance if you were in that position?
Well, I'm a yes.
I know you don't want to play politics. You're playing politics.
Yeah. No, I'm a candidate in Toronto Centre right now, and this is a community that just sums up the legacy of the bad decisions and the neglect that many communities have suffered under successive Liberal and Conservative governments. That's all we've had. So this community is one of the least affordable communities in all of Canada. It has some of the highest rates of child poverty. It's the center of the opioid crisis. It has some of the highest crime rates in all of Toronto. And a third of the people are living below the poverty line. So what we want to see during this pandemic, and they want to see, is first a community that has been hit much harder than most. We want to see the urgent things dealt with first. We want to see the wage subsidies in place. We want to make sure that that people who aren't covered still, students and the people with disabilities, get the emergency benefits extended to include them. And then we're calling for real change, and it's why we weren't able to support the speech from the throne. We want to see a guaranteed livable income. And I simply don't understand why the Prime Minister, after having been told by his caucus that that is their #1 policy priority, did not even mention it in the speech from the throne. My father died in long-term care at the end of May because of the neglect in the system, and we see it's the top story in the Toronto Star from yesterday. We need urgent reform of long-term care. This is not a question of simply provincial jurisdiction. It's a question of human decency and making sure that as we're in the second wave, people stop dying. And then finally, we are the Green Party. And so if the government continues to insist on old targets that don't correspond to the science and aren't going to protect us from runaway climate warming, then we also can't support them. So those are the things we want to see in the immediate term, and those are the things we'd like to see in the medium to long term. En français. Alors, bon, le Parti vert n'était pas capable de soutenir le discours du trône parce qu'il y avait des choses essentielles qui n'étaient pas là. D'abord, on sait que le caucus libéral est en faveur d'un revenu minimum garanti, mais il n'y avait aucune mention d'un revenu minimum garanti dans le discours du trône. Mon père, il est mort dans un centre de soins de longue durée il y a quelques mois. Et on sait que ce système est complètement cassé. On sait qu'il y a des gens qui meurent encore parce que des lacunes dans ce système. Ça, c'est un moment pour les différents niveaux de gouvernement de joindre ensemble et collaborer pour créer un système qui fonctionne. Et finalement, nous sommes le Parti vert. Et si le gouvernement insiste de ne pas créer des bonnes cibles qui correspondent aux sciences et qui peut nous amener vers une minimisation de notre réchauffement climatique, nous ne pouvons jamais les soutenir. Ici à Toronto Centre, les gens ont besoin d'une vraie aide. C'est un quartier où on fait en général le travail qui permettent à notre société à fonctionner, mais c'est un travail très mal payé. C'est un travail qui est normalement fait par des gens racisés. Leurs communautés ont des taux d'infection très élevés en conséquence. Et on voit après des décennies de représentation libérale qui n'ont pas les services dont ils ont besoin. Alors, leur besoin urgent, c'est pour que les bénéfices du gouvernement qui sont offerts à quelques personnes soient offerts à tout le monde. Et après ça, il faut avoir un revenu minimum garanti, il faut avoir un logement abordable, il faut avoir un vrai plan pour attaquer la crise, l'épidémie opioïde aussi, par la décriminalisation des drogues. Ça, c'est les besoins urgents et de mi-terme et long terme par les gens à Toronto Centre, mais partout au Canada d'ailleurs. We had our caucus had conversations with senior members of the Liberal government yesterday. I did not get the impression, I mean, we saw the results yesterday. It was very clear that the Liberals were completely stuck on their position. The Conservatives were totally stuck on theirs. We delayed deciding on our vote because we were hoping until the very last second that the Liberals and the Conservatives were going to do what any reasonable person would have done, which is to sit down and agree together on how they can create this committee with parameters and terms of reference that everyone can live with. They didn't do it, and in not doing it, they failed in Canada. And so we did what we could behind the scenes to encourage them to collaborate and cooperate. I called for it publicly as well. Again, they didn't do it, but each time we're going to do that, and we're going to try to maintain open lines of communication with all the parties, again, because that is what people in Canada deserve, and if we can be the grown-ups in the room, we're going to be the grown-ups in the room every time. Oui, alors oui, nous avons notre caucus a été en contact hier avec des membres, des députés seniors dans le Parti libéral. Nous avons plaidoyé avec eux de collaborer et de continuer leur conversation avec les conservateurs pour trouver une solution. Parce que c'est clair que ça ne devrait pas être une vote de confiance juste pour créer un comité. Ça devrait être quelque chose où deux partis, s'ils se concentrent sur les besoins urgents des personnes, qu'ils soient capables de négocier un compromis acceptable pour les deux côtés. Ils n'ont pas le fait. Nous avons attendu jusqu'au dernier moment de décider comment voter parce qu'on avait gardé l'espoir qu'ils seront capables de négocier et de retourner du but d'une élection. Ils n'ont pas réussi à le faire. Mais je peux assurer les gens que le Parti vert va toujours chercher pour collaborer, toujours chercher un compromis acceptable, surtout en ce moment de pandémie. Nous allons toujours être les adultes dans la salle s'il manque des autres adultes. Très bien? Ça va? Thank you.